All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started for today. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this wonderful Flame Week event. We have lots to cover today, so I am going to go ahead and get us started. What we want to start with is an introduction, of course. My name is Carrie McCullen, and I am the Forest Supervisor at Turnbull Creek Educational State Forest in Elizabethtown in Bladen County, North Carolina. We sort of envisioned Flame Week to come about. Flame stands for Fire Learning and Mitigation Education Week, because there's lots of excitement around discussions of wildfires, especially this day and time, and also prescribed burning. Just recently, our Governor Cooper, declared that month of February be Prescribed Fire Awareness Month. So that's very exciting for us. And also it's helpful to learn many things about wildfires. So we'll certainly go through that throughout the week. Today in particular, we're talking about forest protection burning laws. So we'll cover that in just a little bit. To start with, though, I'd like to share a little bit on our housekeeping for the day. So let's go back to the screen here. All right, some general housekeeping items. We're going to be using the chat function that's circled at the bottom of your screen in red here. Anytime you have a particular question, that's where we're going to be posting those. Everyone in the webinar should be muted and video stopped as well. So you'll have a red circle over the mute and stop video function. To ask a question, simply hit that chat button. And when you do, this information meeting chat will pop up on the side. Make sure that everyone is highlighted in blue in the to section here. Go ahead and type your message. When you type that message, it'll come up. For instance, this gentleman is saying, where can I get a burning permit? Very good question. Once that populates in that window, we'll have folks that are on the call monitoring our chat feature. And at the end of our discussion today, we'll go through and have a question and answer session. If you need to change your view in the webinar today, at the top right-hand corner, there's a view button. We're going to be featuring a video a little bit later on, so you may need to change the view to make sure that our people that are on the call today are not blocking the view. And then finally, at the end of the session, please click the end button when we're finished. Okay. All right. So today's webinar does focus on forest protection burning laws. First, we'll hear about a unique fire investigation that took place right here in Bladen County. Then we'll explore in depth what the forest protection burning laws entail and how they are enforced. And lastly, we'll finish the webinar with our question and answer round. Today, we have a special video to share with a brief story about how North Carolina Forest Service law enforcement agents assisted with the recent arson case in Bladen County, which is the county that my forest is located in. In the video, we will hear from Mike Henson, the Bladen County Ranger, about a series of fires that broke out around the same time in the Kelly community. In order to listen to this video, you may need to raise your speaker volume on your computer or speaker that you have connected to your computer. So please take a minute to do that now while we load the video.
Hello, my name is Mike Henson with the North Carolina Forest Service. I'm the Bladen County Ranger. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our law enforcement and how they have helped us with arson cases. Some time back, we had an issue down in the Kelly area with an arson. Over several weeks, the investigation with our North Carolina Forest Service law enforcement, we were able to successfully apprehend the individual that caused all the fires. Going back to kind of give you an idea on how this happened, there were several different fires in that area that we and the law enforcement of the North Carolina Forest Service investigated over the time. Thankfully, they were able to do the apprehension of this person in a timely manner, because on several of the fires, there was cases where homes almost were destroyed. Kelly is a very rural community, and it has many acres of woodland. A lot of the area where the homes are, they have urban interface, meaning that their homes are surrounded by woods. In some cases, it's less than 50 feet or 100 foot for the homes. In the case of the fires that we had, the homes were pretty much within 50 foot in cases of the fire. Therefore, thankfully, with the initial attack response of our people and the fire departments, we were able to extinguish the fires quickly. Far as acres, they were different sizes, anywhere from a small 1/10 acre to 3 to 5 acres in size during various fires. Roughly, there were basically about 18 different fires that happened out there from the arson. Thankfully, with the quick initial attack with our personnel and the local fire departments, we were able to extinguish those fires. If it wasn't for our local law enforcement and the North Carolina Forest Service law enforcement, we would have probably lost some homes, if not with their timely investigation. So basically the reason this is a success story is our local law enforcement and the North Carolina Forest Service law enforcement were able to apprehend the suspect and then therefore mitigate the situation of any more structures in that area being in danger of a wildfire, also our natural resources as well, and helping the community have more of an ease since the person was apprehended.
That was a little bit of information from our Layton County Ranger, Mike Henson, regarding one of our recent arson cases. Arsons are very, very critical for us as an agency. Obviously, we want to protect homes and livelihoods in our communities, but also our natural resources as well. So very critical that we were able to stop the arsonist and keep things going, of course, with our help of local law enforcement officials to assist with that. All right. So the North Carolina Forest Service and its sworn rangers and law enforcement agents do have the authority to enforce certain laws pertaining to wildfires, debris burning, and prescribed burning in the state of North Carolina. These laws are not guidelines or suggestions, but can legally be upheld in a court of law. And they can be very confusing at times. Here to simplify these forest protection burning laws for us today is Matt Gordon, an North Carolina Forest Service law enforcement agent that covers the southeastern area of the state. And just a reminder that the information referenced in our Flame Week webinar series is specific to practices in just North Carolina and for prescribed burning and wildfire mitigation within the state. We'll be taking questions from the chat after the presentation, so feel free to send them in as we go. And I look forward to hearing from Matt today. I'm sure he has some statistics that may really find it interesting for us. So thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Good morning. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Name's Matt Gordon. I'm the Southeastern Area Law Enforcement Agent for North Carolina Forest Service. I'm a certified fire investigator and a fire investigation technician through the Office of State Fire Marshal for North Carolina. Little back history on myself is when I graduated college, I moved to Virginia and started working for the Forest Service there, and was finally able to get an opportunity to move back home, back North Carolina, where I become Assistant County Ranger of Richmond County, and then later become the County Ranger, and then moved to District Rangers, which when I become in investigations, and recently 2 years ago took a promotion for the law enforcement agent, the supervisor that covers Southeast. So today, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the laws, kind of talk about things that people have questions about, prescribed burning permits, what to do if your fire gets away from you, or anything of that nature. But we'll start off real quick with some general statistics. So last year, calendar year, as of December 12th, we had over 6,171 wildfires that burned 24,267 acres. That's an astronomical amount. If I believe correctly, we were the second highest wildfire state out of all 50 states in the United States. So that's a real big issue for the amount of fires that North Carolina has. Considering our population's ever increasing, and the more fires we have, the more opportunities that we're going to have fires getting into homes, catching homes on fire. And what we have to do in the law enforcement unit and trying to curb this from happening. Our biggest thing with law enforcement in North Carolina is we're not really an enforcing unit. We're more so of an educational unit. Our main goal is to try and actually get people to understand fire and how it works and how we can prevent it from happening. That's what we are out here for. But of those 6,171 fires, 3 of them exceeded 1,000 acres, and there were many more that were hundreds of acres. But in 2022, we issued 2,685 warning tickets, 51 citations, and 243 warrants. Those warrants are more than likely for people that had that needed to be arrested for intentionally setting fires. Also, a new thing that came about was timber theft. Timber theft's always been a law in North Carolina. However, it was no agency really had jurisdiction on who would take over. So December of 2021, it was signed into law that the Forest Service was now the lead agency on all timber thefts. So that's just kind of in a nutshell of what happened in 2022 as far as fires and law enforcement. So before you burn, you should always know the weather of the day. All right. That's the biggest thing. Fire, wildfire, anything about a wildfire or anything burning in your backyard is going to be dependent on the wind, the temperatures, the humidities, anything of that nature. So what I did is I gave a link here to the National Weather Service, where you can actually get the actual location predicted by the National Weather Service for where you live. And I believe we'll be able to go in here after a while and look at it. You can click that link and it'll take you right to it. You'd scroll down, find your area, whether it's Blacksburg or Raleigh or Charleston area, wherever you're provided, or Wilmington, wherever your weather would come from. And it will give you an accurate location or accurate weather location of your area. So outside of that, once you know your weather, we don't want to do it on a dry, windy day. If you are going to burn, it's not against the law, but be respectful to your neighbors. If you know you're going to be burning and the smoke's going to be blowing to your neighbors, be courteous and just not burn and blow the smoke over there. Some people have medical conditions. Some people don't like the smell of smoke. Some people just put their clothes out on the clothesline and you smoke them out. Just be courteous. Being a good neighbor goes a long ways. If I'm a friend of my neighbor, he'll help me out and I'll help them out. So just be mindful of that. Talk about adequate fire suppression tools. Anytime you're burning, you need to have something there with you. The law does not define what adequate means, even though it's stated in there. But I would suggest a minimum of a rake, shovel, a bucket of water, garden hose, or something that way. Make sure you have those items before you light your fire, because as soon as you light your fire, it could automatically take off. It's just the way things happen. Don't set on fire more than you can handle. This is critical. A lot of people want to make one massive pile and set it on fire, and then as fire starts burning and it gets hotter, it winds up drawing air from everywhere, making the fire that much more intense, and then it gets out of hand quicker. So we're able to manage a smaller fire by just simply being able to sit right there with it and watch it, and it helps out. So don't light on more than you can't handle. Know your local town and county ordinance. Some towns and counties in North Carolina have their own restrictions that pertain to open burning. They may not allow any open burning where you plan to burn. So you can always check with your local fire department or fire marshal's office for regulations in your area. So this is a big thing people get tied up on. Fire marshal's jurisdiction. Now, typically, depending on where you live, but statewide, typically, a fire marshal can serve, or his jurisdiction is 100 foot from your occupied dwelling, meaning your house, your barn, or something of that nature. They typically have a 100-foot diameter around that. Outside of that 100 foot, that becomes open land, which is then under jurisdiction of the Forest Service. So we'll get into more of that in a minute when I talk about burning permits. But like I say, just know what your ordinances are. There are some counties that don't allow burning, period. Most of the time, that's because leaf litter and timber or litter pickup is offered by the county or the municipality. Most of the time, the rural areas of where burning takes place. So know what you can burn: natural vegetative debris, leaves, sticks, limbs, grass clippings, branchings, etc. That's basically, if it grows on the property, you can burn. Burning of synthetic materials such as plastic, petroleum, tires, abandoned vacant homes, trash, household garbage, anything that stinks, pretty much, no, don't burn it. That's not permissible by the Division of Air Quality. They can fine you for burning of illegal material. All right. So then now we've gathered all that information, and we're only going to burn what we're supposed to burn, and we're not going to disrespect our neighbors, or we know our ordinances. It's not a dry, windy day. We're going to go and obtain a burning permit. So how do we do that? We go to North Carolina or ncforestservice.gov, find the quick links in the green box, and then follow the steps. And this next slide, that's on the NC Forest Service website. As soon as you open up the home page, the green box on the right, it's your quick links. You click burning permits and you follow the steps. You'll be asked to select your county for which you're going to be burning. You can read through it. It kind of got some hints and points, what you should and shouldn't do, the date that you're going to do your burning and how long you need it for, all those things. You read through it. It's simple, pretty easy to go. As soon as you hit submit, it automatically sends an email to the county ranger or the county email for the county for which you're burning. And then they're notified and they know that burning is planning to take place at a certain residence or location that you've selected. All right. So now we'll talk about the burning permit law. Now, a lot of questions go into this because people ask why. Why is there differences in high hazard county and a non-high hazard county? Well, this is the actual law that North Carolina sets forth. Article 78, North Carolina General Statute 106, which is the regulations of open burning. So in North Carolina, there's 19 high hazard counties. So high hazard basically it means those counties have a high presence of organic soils, meaning that it's dead and decomposed litter that can be upwards of 10 to 15 feet deep. Now, I know people don't understand what that means, but basically it's just organics. It's like duff of years of decomposed leaf matter that when it dries and it actually ignites, it can burn down and like a cigar, basically. Just think of a cigar, how it would burn down slowly and just keep burning down into the ground. You can't just spray those fires out. When we have fires in those areas, a lot of times what we have to do is actually flood the area. So the reason it's considered a high hazard is anytime burning would go across the landscape, it can ignite that duffy material and cause a massive ground fire that the Forest Service has to come in and take months, weeks to extinguish, and lots of time, man hours, and money. So the 19 high hazard counties are listed there. Beaufort, Bladen, Brunswick, Camden, Carteret, Chowan, Craven, Currituck, Dare, Duplin, Gates, Hyde, Jones, Onslow, Pamlico, Pasquotank, Perquimans, Terrell, and Washington. Don't ask me why some counties aren't in there. Pender, Columbus, New Hanover. I don't make the rules. That's just what's there. So 106 General Statute 106 942A states that those are the 19 high hazard counties in North Carolina. So what does it mean? Well, we got regular permits and special permits. So if you live within those 19 counties and you plan on burning, you're either going to have to get a regular permit or a special permit. Okay, so we'll talk about the regulars. All right, so regular permit for this one, you got to have a permit all 24 hours of the day. If you plan on burning, you obtain a burning permit the same way. You can go online or local permitting agents. And the law states it's unlawful for any person to willfully start or cause to be started any fire within 500 foot of woodland without first obtaining a permit. Permits may be issued by forest rangers or other approved agents. So you ask within 500 foot of the woodland. Basically, that's just stating if you are going to be within 500 foot of the woodland that a permit's required. The 500 foot rule of the woodland is Forest Service jurisdiction, and that's why it's in there. Just know that, I guess, if you're going to be burning in an open field and it's within 500 foot of the woodland, then yes, you will need a permit, and a permit will be required at all 24 hours of the day. The best thing I can tell you is if you think you need a permit, go online and get a permit. It's not hard. All right, your special permit. Basically, this is for land clearing. So it's unlawful for any person to willfully burn any debris, stumps, brush, or other flammable material resulting from ground clearing activities involving 5 or more contiguous acres, regardless of distance the burning is from the woodland, and if material is placed in windrow or piles without obtaining a special permit. Okay, so that's the key. If you got 5 acres or more from a land clearing, you have to have the special permit. If it's less than 5 acres, it's a regular permit in a high hazard. So this next one, the special permit conditions. So you have to abide by this when you get the special permit. Winds will be blown away from a smoke sensitive area. That can be as simple as a road. Roads can be smoke sensitive because if you block the vision of passing motors, cause a vehicle accident, that kind of thing. 500 feet minimum from a residential area. And then minimize dirt and organic matter. Basically, that's saying that if you're piling debris, the debris pile does not need to have a lot of organic matter in it because that's going to smoke a long time. No heavy oils, asphalt, synthetic rubber, which, as we said, and then stagnant air or inversions. Basically, that is nothing more than saying the wind is calm. It's smoke just kind of mushrooms out and it smokes out the whole area. An inversion is nothing more than a layer of air above us in the atmosphere that keeps the smoke from going up and dispersing. And then this is important too. Ignite only between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And then no material is added after 4 p.m. until 8 a.m. the next morning. That would be in violation of your special permit condition, okay? So special permits, and these may only be issued by forest rangers that have been approved to do so by the district forester. So there's no permitting agents or anything like that. The only person that can do that is actual forest ranger that has to come out and inspect the area prior to issuing it. Then after they see that you've met all the criteria of the special permit, then they can issue you one. So once again, that's for like your land clearing in the high hazard counties. All right. If you don't live within those 19 counties, that would be the other 81 counties in the state, then you got a non-high hazard permit. It's easy to do. Go online, click it, and then you got it. So it's unlawful for anyone to start or cause to be started any fire or ignite any material in any woodland protected by the department within 500 foot of any such woodland between the midnight and 4 p.m. without obtaining a permit from one of the NCFS locations. So with this one, a lot of people have a question on it because when I tell you that you're not required to have a permit after 4 p.m., you can burn after 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight without a permit. And that's where people get confused. So after 4 p.m., basically the thought process is that the winds have died down, the humidity's gone up, the temperatures have dropped, so it's less likely for a fire to escape your control. That's the thought process behind not having a permit. which is not a bad idea to burn after 4 p.m. anyways. But that's what's going on there. So once again, if you get a permit, you're good. You're covered for the whole 24 hours. Now, open burning prohibited. We've probably seen a lot of this here lately. It seems like when burning bans have been issued. That's the Commissioner of Agriculture, Steve Troxler. We are under the Department of Agriculture, and he is the only one in the state of North Carolina that can issue a burning ban. So when he issues one, it can be for the one county or the entire state. And when a burning ban and permit cancellation starts, any permit that has been given, whether if it was on online purposes, you'll receive an email stating that your permits have been canceled. And if you have a paper permit that was written by a Forest Service office or an agent, we will call and make sure that you understand that permits have been canceled. If you are burning during the burning ban and be found in violation of, it's an automatic $100 fine plus the cost of court. So that's $183. So it would automatically be a $283 ticket straight off the gate just for burning during the burning ban. The reason that will be implemented though is because of fire conditions or air pollution or air pollution episodes, basically. Once again, burning is prohibited regardless of the distance of wherever, whether it's 500 foot, 50 foot, it doesn't matter. I say that 100 foot from a house, we still do not have jurisdiction in North Carolina. So local fire marshals will typically issue a burning ban. If the state puts on a burning ban, the county or the municipality will issue a burning ban. So then therefore the 0 foot from the home to the 100-foot zone, you wouldn't see, or you wouldn't be able to burn. But if the county or local fire marshal's office doesn't issue one, you can still burn within that 100 foot. But 100 foot from the house out, when a burning ban has been implemented, there's no burning in the state. And if we have to come there, it's automatic violation. We will put the fire out, and then you will be issued a citation for it. Okay, so we'll talk about the duties of forest ranger. All right, so forest rangers shall have charge of all measures for controlling forest fires, protection of forests from pests and disease, and then the development and improvement of forests for maximum production of forest products. So that's their duties. So then we'll talk about the powers of forest rangers and deputy rangers to prevent and extinguish fires. Forest rangers or deputy rangers shall prevent and extinguish forest fires and shall have control and direction of all person and equipment while engaged in extinguishing of forest fires. So it says shall, and this is in North Carolina General Statute. So they shall prevent and shall have control. So when you say the word prevent, if they are riding by and they actually see an unsafe manner and they realize that a fire is fixing to escape, they can come on your property and take action to stop that fire from escaping. Also, a forest ranger may summons any resident between the ages of 18 and 45, inclusive to assist in extinguishing fires. Any person so summoned and who is physically able who refuses or neglects to assist to or allow the use of equipment or such other properties required shall be guilty of Class 3 misdemeanor. I've never heard of this happening, but that is something that forest rangers can do. The one thing I'll know, most of the time at any fire that goes on in the state, most everyone is willing beyond to help in any way for the Forest Service or fire departments to put out a fire. Fire is scary. People understand it and they're willing to help. But that is something that a forest ranger can do. The forest rangers are also authorized to issue and serve citations under the terms of General Statute 15A-302 and warning tickets under the General Statute 106-901 for offenses under the forest laws, which are what we're talking about now, forest protection laws. A forest ranger cannot issue anything outside of just Forest Service laws. They're not sworn peace officers in the state, so they only have jurisdiction over the burning laws. However, if they issue you a citation, you will have to go to court and then pay the associated fine with it if you're found guilty or whatever in court. And then warning tickets. Warning tickets is the best preventive action I think the Forest Service uses. I can only tell you right now on my hand that I've issued warning tickets in my 15 years 3 times to where I've had to go back and issue a citation for somebody having another fire escape. So I find it very, very an effective tool. If we issue a warning ticket, most of the time, that's the last time we ever deal with someone. So we like warning tickets. Plus, it keeps us out of court. Okay. All right. So we'll talk about the powers of forest law enforcement officers. That's what I am. We investigate and enforce any violation of the laws within the authority of the department for which occur on department property. We may arrest without warrant any person or persons committing any crime in the officer's presence, or who such offender has probable cause for believing has committed a crime in the officer's presence. So it doesn't, for myself, it does not have to necessarily be a forest law that's in violation. I have statewide jurisdiction as a state sworn police officer. And then we have authority to obtain and serve warrants, including warrants for violations and any duly promulgated rule of the department. So got a little bit more power, but at heart, we're still all forest rangers. Every one of us that's in the law enforcement unit started as an assistant county ranger or as county ranger and moved our way up. So we bleed green, as we say, and we will always be forest rangers at heart. So let's talk about the actual burning laws now for offenses that one could be charged with in the state. All right. So you got North Carolina General Statute 14-136. This is probably, we don't charge this the most, but most of the time when we charge it, there's a legitimate reason that we do charge it. It's complicated statute. I think it could be cleaned up some, but hey, it is what it is. And it must be read carefully to understand it. There's 2 sections in the statute spelling out 3 different offenses where a violator can be charged. She can be charged 3 different ways for this one statute. So let's look into it. It's kind of lengthy. If any person shall intentionally set fire to the grassland, brushland, or woodland, except it be his own property, or in the case without first giving notice to all persons owning or in charge of lands adjoining the land intended to be fired, and without also taking care to watch such fire while burning and to extinguish it before it shall reach any lands near to or adjoining the lands so fired, he shall for every such offense be guilty of a class 2 misdemeanor for that first offense. And for a second or any subsequent similar offense shall be guilty of a class 1 misdemeanor. That's a mouthful. But however, there's still more to this. This statute's not done. And I'm going to show you here in just a second. I'm going to break it down. So here's the continued part of this same statute. If the intent to damage the property of another shall be shown, said person shall be punished as a class I felon. This section shall not prevent any action for damages sustained by the owner of any property from such fires. For the purposes of this section, the term woodland is to be taken and included in all forest areas, both timber and cut over land, and all second growth stands on areas that have one time been cultivated. A person who shall furnish to the state evidence sufficient for conviction of this violation shall receive a sum of $500 to be paid from state fire suppression fund. I'll touch on that real quick. The reason we have to put in there both timber and cut over land and all second growth stands is because if we said that this was grassland, brushland, or woodland, well, it's not really brushland, it's not really woodland, it's not really timber. So when you look at it, that's why it was had to be put into law that cut over, because the verbiage is not there, cut over had to be taken in account. The next thing too is when we talk about the sum of $500 to be paid for anybody to provide evidence sufficient for conviction, is when we start looking into these fires, most of the time when we start dealing with arson, we have to have somewhere around 20 to 30 fires before we actually can develop a suspect. It's crazy. It's so hard. There's so much area that anybody can actually go set a fire, and we just can't be in all places at one time. So we use the public's help, and if they provide us with sufficient evidence that we are able to get a conviction on, we can apply for and also give you the sum of the $500 to help for the conviction. So that's nice. So let's break this down. So the first part, elements, so the misdemeanor charging. So how is a person guilty of this? If he intentionally sets fire, right? So there you go. He went over there, he deliberately, that's the word intentionally. He intentionally sets fire to any grassland, brushland, or woodland of another or owned by the person, unless he or she, one, fails to notify the adjacent property owners, and then watches the fire and ensures that it does not damage the adjoining lands. I know that's kind of a mouthful, but he intentionally sets fire to someone else's property and then doesn't notify them, or he doesn't watch and ensure that it does not damage the adjoining lands. Basically, it gets off his property and goes on to somebody else's, is what that states. So first offense is class 2 misdemeanor, and any subsequent similar offense, they should be guilty of a class 1. All right, so we'll talk about the intentional burning with intent to do damage. This is when we get into our true arson cases. People set fires in the state of North Carolina a lot. Sometimes it can be for thrill seeking, and they don't really intend to do damage, but they done a bad thing. Most of the time we'll charge them on the misdemeanor side. When we start talking about people that are full-blown arson, like the case in Bladen County that took 5 months for us to figure it out, who set fires over multiple counties, we start getting into the intent there to do damage. So a person's guilty of this offense if he sets fire to the grassland, brushland, or woodland of another with willful or malicious intent to damage property. Automatic, class I felony, maximum sentence 12 months. A lot of that's going to depend on their prior record, what they've done in the past. Are they a known arson? Do they set fires all the time? Have they been convicted before? Those kind of things. Punishment will change depending on the prior record level. So here's a screenshot real quick of a case we had in 2012 where we got 54 convictions on this guy. Started in Richmond County. This was over 2 years now, and this is just what we charged for. So, I mean, we had hundreds of fires, but we were able to successfully put him there. So it started in Richmond County, and then it moved to Scotland County and Hope County, back to Scotland, back to Richmond. You'll see the little truck on there. That's where we can place his vehicle at those 4 or 5 fires, actually, where we know he was there. So that's when we used the felony statute, something like this. This guy was about to kill us. We were getting tired. Everybody was burned out. There was so many fires, and the public's help was monumental in this one. We actually had a video from a door cam that showed this guy using his device. So once again, public helps. Perfect. Can't say it enough. So anytime somebody sees something that doesn't seem right, regardless whether it's warranted or you think it doesn't mean anything, let us look at it and decide. But when you start dealing with stuff like that, this guy he didn't care. He was out to prove a point, and he was a true fire setter. So that's what it would look like on the felony side of us. The reason I'm not showing you some of the other stuff is because I have a lot of active cases right now that have not gone through court, and so I can't bring it up. But anyways, that's just something of what we're looking at when we start talking about felonies. All right, let's talk about the next one. North Carolina General Statute 14-137, willfully or negligently setting fires to the woods and fields. If any person, firm, corporation shall willfully or negligently set on fire or cause to be set on fire any woodlands, fields whatsoever, shall be guilty of class 2 misdemeanor. This section applies only in those counties under the protection of the Department of Agriculture and its works at forest fire control. It shall not apply to the case of landowner firing or causing to be fired his own open non-wooded lands or in fields connected with farming or building operations. This one here, at one point in time, the Forest Service did not have contracts in all 100 counties where we actually had offices. So this law would have only applied where the Forest Service was actually at. So now that all 100 counties in the state of North Carolina works for forest fire control in all 100 counties, this statute does apply. So let's break it down. Person's guilty of this offense if he willfully or negligently sets on fire or causes to be set on fire any woodland fields in any county under the protection of the Department of Agriculture and its works forest fire control. So this is a criminal charge, but however, there's 5 laws on the books in North Carolina where criminal negligence does not play. So, or does not have to come into play. This particular law, negligence, uses the civil side. And it's been upheld in court to where basically failure to use due care. How would one be charged with this? He's outside, it's a windy day. He decides he's going to set his broom straw field on fire. He sets it on fire. He's not dished a line around it, and it takes off and gets away from him, and it runs through the community, or it runs into the neighbor's yard, or however, something like that. Whoever done that negligently set that fire or negligently caused that fire to be set. So think of that. Willfully, we can also use this one as well for people who willfully go out and set fires, kind of in the intentional manner. Willfully sets fires, like I'm gonna go ahead and say it. We've had firemen set fires before. We've charged them with willfully setting fires. So it could also work there. Class 2 misdemeanor, max fine 1,000, and then sentence 1 to 60 days. All right. 14-138.1. Any person, firm, corporation, or legal entity who shall in any manner start any fire upon any grassland, brushland, or woodland without fully extinguishing the same shall be guilty of a class 3 misdemeanor, which may include a fine of not less than 10 or more than $50. This is what you're typically going to run into a forest ranger charging somebody with, either on a warning ticket or a citation. This is our everyday stuff. So break it down. Any person, firm, corporation, or legal entity is guilty of this if he or she starts any fire upon any grassland, brushland, or woodland in any manner whatsoever without fully extinguishing it. So basically saying that you could be out there cutting with a cutting torch in the hay field because your hay baler had a bearing go out, and it falls down on the hay field and catches your hay field on fire, and it burns across your field. We have to come and extinguish it. Technically, that's where I'm going with the fire being set in any manner whatsoever without fully extinguishing it. Now, is the Forest Service going to come and beat you down about it? Accidents happen. We understand that. But now, if this is the 3rd time we've come to you for you cutting a bearing off your hay baler, and you set the fire again for the 3rd time, hey, you didn't take heed to what was happening the first 2 times. This time, hey, we're going to probably write you a citation. Maybe you'll remember it next time. We're not out to be bad guys. We're here to cut people breaks and work with you. But that's where that comes. Or we'll go into I'm burning in my backyard. Everything's good. I thought my fire was out. I went inside for just a second to get a glass of water. I come back outside. Now my yard and the woods are on fire. It's an accident. Things happen. But it's what goes on. And there you go. We started a fire upon the grassland, brushland, woodland in any manner without fully extinguishing it. Boom. That's the way that one works. All right. Next one. Certain fires to be guarded by a watchman. Any person, firm, corporation, or legal entity who shall burn any brush, grass, or other material whereby any property may be endangered or destroyed without keeping and maintaining a careful watchman in charge of the burning shall be guilty of an infraction, which may include a fine of not less than 10 or more than 50. Fires escaping from brush, grass, or other material while burning shall be prima facie evidence of violation of this provision. So this is an infraction. This is one we can just go pay off. Once again, we'll break it down. Person, firm, corporation who burns brush, grass, or material situated where any property may be endangered or destroyed without keeping and maintaining a careful watchman in charge of the burning taking place. So technically, yes, you can be charged for this one without the fire escaping, but we don't typically do that. Most of the time it escaped due to you not watching it. So understanding that if you're burning, you don't need to leave a smoke and ash pile there in your backyard and not put any water on it. The best thing you could do is go ahead and make sure you extinguish your fire when you're done burning, and then that way it doesn't escape and get out of here. Okay. Now, prescribed burning. I think Carrie told us that the governor's declared February as prescribed burning month. So there's under Article 80, the North Carolina Prescribed Burning Act. Now, let's talk about what the General Assembly finds that prescribed burning of forest lands is a management tool that is beneficial to North Carolina's public safety, forest and wildlife resources, environment, and economy. The General Assembly also finds that following are benefits that result from prescribed burning of forest lands. It reduces the naturally occurring buildup of vegetative fuels on forest lands, thereby reducing the risk and severity of wildfires and lessening the loss of life and property. So therefore, the General Assembly finds that burning is necessary for the safety of the citizens of North Carolina. Also, the state's ever increasing population is resulting in urban development directly adjacent to fire-prone forest lands, referred to as woodland-urban interface. The use of prescribed burning in those woodland-urban interfaces areas substantially reduces the risk of wildfires that cause damage. Folks, I'll tell you, when a major wildfire is running towards a subdevelopment and we're trying to put that fire out, it turns into mass chaos, because there's nothing worse than Forest Service and fire department trying to go in between homes and stretch fire hose everywhere, and fire is rapidly burning towards a home. Best thing we can do is, if we can keep fire into areas that need it and we can reduce that threat, that's the purpose of this. So the natural ecosystems require periodic fire for their survival. Forest lands are economic, biological, and aesthetic resources for statewide significance. And then prescribed burning enhances the resources of public use lands, such as state and national forests, wildlife refuge, national preserves, and game lands. So it enhances private lands that manage for wildlife. So the General Assembly finds that burning is necessary in North Carolina. So when we talk about the Prescribed Burning Act, there is immunity from liability. So any prescribed burning conducted in compliance with General Statute 106-968 is in the public interest and does not constitute a public or private nuisance. A landowner or the landowner's agent who conducts a prescribed burning in compliance with this 106-968 shall not be liable in any civil action for any damage or injury caused by or resulting from smoke. Only smoke. Notwithstanding subsection A and B, this section does not apply when a nuisance or damage results from a negligently or improperly conducted prescribed burn. So this Prescribed Burning Act only pertains to smoke. It still says that you've got to maintain your fire. You can't have your fire escape your control. You can't have it get out and burn on somebody else's property and damage. No, it basically states that if we follow our burning plans and we do everything by the book, and our smoke does something that it's not supposed to do or predicted to do, we should be covered. So we'll talk about the actual prescribed burning. Prior to conducting a prescribed burning, the landowner shall obtain a prescription for the prescribed burning prepared by a certified prescribed burner and filed with the North Carolina Forest Service. Excuse me. A copy of this prescription shall be provided to the landowner, and then a copy of the prescription shall be in the possession of the reasonable or responsible burner on site through the duration of the prescribed burning. The prescription shall include landowner's name and address, a description of the area to be burned, a map of the area to be burned, an estimate of tons of fuel located in the area, the objective of the prescribed burning, a list of the acceptable weather conditions, parameters for the prescribed burning, sufficient to minimize the likelihood of smoke damaging and fire escaping on the adjacent lands or areas, the name of the certified prescribed burner, a summary of methods that are adequate for the particular circumstances involved to use, start, control, and extinguish, and provisions, reasonable notice of the prescribed burning to provide to nearby homes and business to avoid effects on health and property. So basically what that says is that you have to have 1 through 9 on you at all times and completed to make sure that we are in compliance with the Prescribed Burning Act, to where if our smoke was to cause something, that we would be under immunity. So make sure that if you have your burning plan or whoever's doing it, they have every bit of that dotted, cross, ready to roll. We don't want to skip one, because if you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but you're missing 4, this is all about civil. It's a civil type deal, and attorneys will pick through and say, oh, well, you didn't have that, so therefore by law you didn't meet the threshold, so we're not going to qualify you with that. So make sure, if the law states that you're supposed to have all this, that you have it all. All right, part B. Prescribed burning shall be conducted by a certified prescribed burner in accordance with the prescription that satisfies subsection A, which we just read, of this section. The certified burner shall be present on site and shall be in charge of the burning throughout the period of the burning. A landowner may conduct a prescribed burning and be in compliance with this article without being a certified burner if the landowner is burning a tract of forest land of 50 acres or less owned by that landowner, and is following the conditions established in a prescription prepared by a certified burner. Basically saying that you do not have to be a certified burner if you are a forest landowner. You own that forest land and you burn less than 50 acres, but you've been given a certified burn plan by a certified prescribed burner, and you follow that plan to a T. So, and you have filed that burn plan with the North Carolina Forest Service, and you follow every bit of this law, you can still burn and still be qualified under immunity. Okay, prior to conducting the prescribed burn, the landowner or landowner's agent shall obtain an open burner permit, whether you're in the 19 high hazard counties or either in the other counties that are non-high hazard. This open burning permit must remain in effect throughout the period of the prescribed burning. The prescribed burning shall be conducted in compliance with all the following: the terms and conditions of the open burning permit, the state's air pollution control statutes under Article 21, any applicable local ordinance relating to open burning, the smoke management guidelines adopted by the North Carolina Forest Service, and any rules adopted by the North Carolina Forest Service. And in Part D, the North Carolina Forest Service may accept prescribed burner certifications from another state or other entity for the purposes of prescribed burning under this article. So the North Carolina Forest Service would actually have to accept somebody's certification from another state, is what that's saying. And we would have to see that they meet our standards. And once we sign off on it, then somebody, say South Carolina, that's a certified burner down there, if we feel that they've met the same requirements of what we require in North Carolina, we can adopt it. And then frequently asked questions. What should I do if my fire escapes my control and I need help extinguishing the same? Well, first and foremost, we'll call 911 to report the fire. Answer all the questions that the dispatchers ask you. Have a way for arriving personnel to access the area burning. If you know your fire's escaped and it's gotten away from you and you're waiting on fire department to get there, take the time and say, hey, you can come right through here, or you can come this way, or it's going that way. Be a helping hand. After the fire is extinguished, a North Carolina Forest Service ranger will come and talk to you. It'd be my best advice to anybody that has a fire that escapes their control to be truthful. I'll tell you this, honesty goes a long ways, and can mean the difference between a warning ticket and a citation. Most of the time, rangers handle probably 95% of all fire law enforcement in the state. And if one of us law enforcement officers has to come because somebody's been unruly with somebody, there's no warning tickets on the table most of the time. So Honesty goes a long way. On my burning permit application, it states that I certify that the proposed fire is within 500 foot of state protected woodland. What does state protected woodland mean? Shouldn't it be that the fire is not within 500 foot of the state woodland? So state protected woodland refers to any land for which the state of North Carolina has jurisdiction of fire suppression responsibility. This includes all land except for that under the control of the federal government. Examples: tribal lands, national parks, national forests, military installations, fish and wildlife refuges, or anything under the federal government. Most of the time, we don't typically go into municipalities, but we can. Most of the time, municipalities will take care of their own stuff. Can I extend my current permit? No, the permit is only valid for the time frame for which you've requested. However, if you realize that your permit is running out or has already expired, just get another one. North Carolina burning permits are valid for 30 days. How much do permits cost? There's no cost with online burning permits. There may be in some instances across the state where permitting agencies charge. I don't think they do. I know in Southeast North Carolina where I work, they don't, as far as I know. You shouldn't have to pay for them. My neighbor burns all the time, and I want you to make him stop. If I could tell you how many times we've heard that, we just can't go out and make people stop burning unless you live in a municipality of the county where outdoor burning is prohibited. The NCFS cannot make someone stop burning if there's no violation of North Carolina general statute. There has to be a general statute broken of the forest protection laws in order for us to be able to do something. So, we deal with it all the time. People burn, upset people, but it is what it is. So you can try to talk to your neighbor. You can always call the Forest Service. We can always come out and look, have a conversation. But if no laws have been broken and they're burning legal permissible material, there's really not a whole lot we can do unless you go and complain to your county or local government. And then, what's the difference between North Carolina Forest Service laws and Division of Air Quality laws regarding burning? North Carolina laws are general statutes that have been ratified into law and can be enforced by all sworn forest rangers, forest law enforcement officers, and other sworn officers of the state holding a criminal justice certification. So basically, they are general statutes. General statutes can be enforced by criminal justice certification anywhere. Division of Air Quality are rules. They're not general statutes. They can be enforced by sworn, or that can't be enforced by sworn officers holding criminal justice certification. Therefore, violation of the rules and regulations of the Division of Air Quality can only be enforced by them. So that's where that comes into play. The air quality can only enforce the rules for which they have regulatory authority over. And at the end of that should be all of my presentation. I will be glad to answer questions or anything of that nature now.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you for taking us into that deep dive into all things burning laws. I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there, even beyond this webinar today. We'll go ahead and take any questions. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and throw the last slide up. Can I just get confirmation from somebody on that last slide? Matt, can you see it?
Thank you for attending. Yes.
Yep, you got it. Awesome. So as questions are coming in for Matt, we have a QR code here on this last slide. Feel free to utilize your phone's camera and capture that QR code. We are starting a subscription service through the North Carolina Forest Service I&E branch, and you can actually subscribe to get further information from us in either an email or by text on anything related to anything that we do. So if there's burn bans, air quality alerts, wildfire alerts, anything like that, we can pulse those out to you. Any information on our education forest, any burning laws changes, things like that we may have to share, we can do that with you. So feel free to go ahead and collect that QR code. And in the meantime, I believe there was at least one question through the chat. Julian, do you want to go ahead and unmute and share that with Matt, please?
Yep, absolutely. So our question that we have so far for you, Matt, is from a prescribed buyer perspective, how should we determine who should be notified? The Prescribed Burning Act requires notification of nearby residents and businesses that could be impacted by smoke, but the burning permit laws require notification of all adjoining landowners. How would that be determined? For example, a fire is interior to a larger property, or the fire is only touching one boundary of an adjoining property. Who must be notified?
Okay, I'm reading that too. So when we talk about the prescribed burning and notifying adjoining landowners, so it's not just that. So if you think about General Statute 14-136, when we're burning, if your fire was to escape, get onto the adjoining landowners and without notifying them, that's where the violation would come in there as well. So you got to think a lot of this is in good faith. Okay. When we're doing prescribed burning, there's a lot of landowners in the state that are absentee landowners that live God knows where, or it's in a firm or a corporation or a legal entity or an LLC. And I'll tell you, and I'm going to say this honestly, because my recent timber theft that I've got, it took me 2 weeks to figure out who the heck the owner was. So we do our best when it comes down to notifying adjoining landowners. Doing something in good faith, you try to notify everybody. It's the best thing I can tell you. Once again, though, the law does state it. So it's one thing. How do we notify everybody? We do our best. We try to contact, send emails, have a paper chain or paper trail, or do whatever. But if you're burning interior of your property and the adjoining landowner of your burn block is you, well, I hope you would tell yourself that you're going to burn. So that's one thing there. Goes back to the whole thing. It's good to have good neighbors. Be friendly to your neighbors. Talk to them. Let them understand what your goal is. And maybe you can actually get them involved in wanting to burn too. But just know that when you burn, if you're doing a prescribed burn, do your best to try to let everyone know. I'll tell you, the Forest Service burns a lot of acres for a lot of people, and it's hard for us to get up with everybody as well. We do our best. It's not saying that anybody's truly negligent on doing their job. It's just we can only try to do but so much before we can actually get out and do what we need to do. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Matt. Thank you for answering. As long as we do our due diligence and have proof of record, that's the best case scenario. And then, as he mentioned earlier in his presentation, honesty is the best policy. Those golden rules.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions out there? Feel free to go ahead and send those over to the chat. We'll certainly send out a follow-up email to today's webinar. We provided a plethora of links to all of those general statutes that Matt was mentioning in our chat feature here. And so we definitely want to have those sent home with you. We'll be sending out an email follow-up later on in the week with all of the links from today's webinar. And if you stuck on with us from yesterday's webinar, that'll be coming up as well. One thing I did want to mention for those that are still sticking around with us, we added, based on our Q&A from yesterday, a feature topic to our subscription list, and that was on certified burner classes. So from yesterday's Q&A discussion on prescribed burning, we've also added that elective topic. If you've already gone ahead and subscribed to the listserv, you may need to go back in and into your profile and add that option. So click back on the QR code here, or go back into your profile, and the certified burner class notification should be one of the options that you can elect for in your subscription. All right, and for those of you that are signing off, we will hopefully see most of you back online tomorrow at 10 a.m. for our fire behavior forecasting and fire weather discussion. We'll be having Terry Lebo with us from the National Weather Service out of Wilmington tomorrow to discuss all things fire weather related. And we'll also have one of our Forest Service employees, David Greathouse, who is a fire behavior analyst on the incident management team, discussing fire behavior and forecasting models. So looking forward to that conversation too. Feel free to send any other questions into chat. We'll monitor for a few minutes. And thank you again, Matt, for that wonderful presentation today. It's a lot of information to absorb and a lot of really great information to have on hand and reference. So all those links on the general statutes will be great bedtime reading for folks once they get that follow-up email from us.
You're welcome.
Mhm. Julian, I think that was the only question so far in the Q&A for chat, correct?
Yep, that's all I've seen so far.
Okay, and give folks a few more minutes if they'd like to stick around with us. I think most are dropping off. But we'll be happy to answer any questions. And of course, after today, if a question pops up in your mind, feel free to reach out to your local county ranger station and they'll be happy to direct your question.